You have just tuned in to the Mag Nerd Podcast, your home for everything in music, anime, and gaming. What is up, guys? Showing up the King here, back with another video, and today I'm bringing a special video. I've been wanting to do a state of the gamer video for a very long time, and again, just to let you guys know, this video will also be up on the Mag Nerd Podcast as a special episode as well, just the audio version. But I also wanted to make sure that I was servicing both bases, my YouTube base as well as my podcast base. So that's why I'm going to be uploading this video straight to YouTube, as well as uploading this on a separate audio only version for my podcast fans. Now, the reason why this video exists is because I've kind of had it up to here with the gaming culture that we all are a part of. Again, I don't consider myself a huge YouTuber slash podcaster. I'm actually very small, but I have opinions and I have thoughts, and I like to kind of put those things out there just because it's therapeutic for me. Like, that's why I do this mostly, is because, again, I do feel like there's a certain segment of people that I speak with in my regular everyday life who value my opinions on certain things, at the same time, for me being a person that's in this industry who enjoys it and who wants to see it grow. I also feel like this is the way that I can do that. So, and the reason why I'm saying all this is because I'm trying to just provide you with some context about what I'm going to be talking about and why I feel like I have the unique capability to kind of see this and kind of spread out the things with facts and just give you an opinion based on that, not having any biases on either side. So as you guys can tell in the title card, this is a story about gamers' inherent need to always have everything they want. We are very needy. We are very opinionated when it comes to things that we want. If we are spending our money on these things, we have this ability to just feel like we're very entitled. That's just the short end of it. We're very entitled. Again, include myself to a certain extent. But I feel like that entitlement is starting to bleed over into a toxic environment, which is already the video game industry, and that's kind of just been brought up and is more prevalent now because of the bottom line is that there is a huge controversy going on right now with Kotaku and with YouTuber content creators. Bigger ones than myself, but again, just in general with YouTube commenters. And the story kind of revolves around this YouTuber who I follow. His name is YongYea, and Jason Schreier, who is one of the lead writers for Kotaku. Now, this controversy had started a couple weeks ago when Jason came out and was kind of talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, a game that I've played, a game that I've beaten, and a game that I've put about 90 hours in, personally. So again, I'm speaking from a place of, I've played this game and I know exactly the ins and outs of this game, because again, I've put as much time in this game as I've put into any Assassin's Creed game combined. This game alone, I've put more time in this solo game alone than I've ever put into any other Assassin's Creed game, probably combined. Just saying. So, the controversy started with the fact that Jason Schreier came out and kind of said that people need to stop complaining about the microtransactions that were in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, saying that the XP boosters were not that big of a deal and that people just need to chill the fuck out. And of course, you know, gamers and just entitled individuals in general don't like to be told that kind of thing. They want to have their anger justified. They don't want to hear any other kind of perspective of why that person is saying what they want to say. Is they just want to know that I'm angry and you're not validating my anger, so therefore I'm going to attack you and I'm going to be an asshole to you. And that's exactly what happened. And of course, with Jason doing that, it caused the YouTube content creators to kind of jump on him as well and kind of dig their nails in deeper. And one of those people were YongYea. So, and again, there was more stuff going on in that, encompassing in that thing, where it might have seemed like Jason was taking shots at YongYea and just other YouTubers like himself, Dreamcast Guy, Angry Joe, stuff like that. This kind of thing has been boiling over. So, what I want to do today is I want to talk about this article, this video that came up with YongYea and Jason Schreier, where they basically had a sit down, kind of like a town hall style kind of conversation, just talking about the video game industry in general, and just kind of getting both their feelings out there and on the video. It's about an hour and a half. Again, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to play the entire thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play certain segments of the actual conversation so you can hear both sides and kind of what their arguments were, and I'm going to give my opinion on it. That's kind of what I do, you know, and again, and what I want to do is I want to touch on a few things before I get into that as well, because I do think that it's very important to talk about what a YouTube gaming journalist slash content creator does versus someone like a Jason Schreier, who is in the industry, who has the connections, who is quote unquote the big fish. What he brings to the game versus what a YouTuber like myself or YongYea or Dreamcast Guy or Angry Joe or Layman Gaming or whatever, what these guys are bringing to the table. Because again, all of that stuff is connected. It's all what brings these situations together, and it just creates a huge ball of frustration right now. So, I don't even know where to start. So, and again, don't expect, this is more of a conversation. This is going to be one of my longer videos. Just bear with me, because again, I'm just having a conversation right now. So, one of the things that I want to just kind of talk about first is how I feel about content creators like myself and the hierarchy and how these things go. Because already this video has been out and it's already had over 150,000 views within the first day. This by far will be the biggest video that YongYea has put out because of the controversy, because Jason Schreier is on this video. So it's going to be huge. It's just no question. And again, like my video, there are going to be a lot of other people within the rest of this week that are going to be talking about this. This is all anybody's going to be talking about for the next couple of days. I can guarantee you that my video won't be the only one on YouTube talking about it. Just before I started recording today, another YouTuber that I follow, Dreamcast Guy, kind of gave his thoughts on the situation. And again, there's a lot of falsehoods and a lot of just narrative-based BS that are just kind of out there. Like, see, this is the kind of thing, this is the kind of person I am. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I'm not going to apologize for anything that I say, because if I said it, I meant it. Now, again, I'm not saying that I'm not known to put my foot in my mouth and I have every right to kind of tread back on certain things, but I'm not going to apologize on an opinion that I had, just because the way you received it. So, what I mean by that is, so Dreamcast Guy, again, another guy that I follow, love his content, but I'm also, just because I like you, I'm not going to it doesn't mean I'm not going to call you out on the bullshit if I see it. So, in this video, he kind of titled it, what did he title it? Let me pull it up real quick, because I just want to make sure that I'm accurate in my my assumption. So he kind of titled it, you know, he was basically talking about, you know, YongYea's his video and how he felt like Kotaku was attacking YouTubers, and he went on about how he went through Kotaku's article history and how, you know, Kotaku has this history of talking about YouTubers and how they don't like YouTubers and how this and this and that, and just basically, and then he proceeded to talk about how he just discovered Young's content and how he liked what he was doing, and that he doesn't think that YongYea has ever posted anything that's salacious, which is bullshit, because again, YongYea, that is exactly how YouTube works. Like, let's call a spade a spade. You have content creators who you know, when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into a project that you think that's for the good of the humanity, and you put it out, and that video probably gets a couple hundred views, but you then put out a video where you're talking shit about somebody or you're stirring the pot on something, and that video gets like 500,000 views, you're going to start posting that kind of content, because at the end of the day, most YouTubers like YongYea, they're in it for the Patreon. They're in it for the YouTube views, because again, they need to make a living off of this kind of situation. So for you to sit there, for Dreamcast Guy to come out there and sit there and say that YongYea has never put out a salacious video to try to raise, not, I don't want to say race bait, but to kind of, YongYea has a fan base that are very, very sexist, racist, like anti-Semitic. They dwell in his YouTube comments. It only takes you to go to certain videos and you can just go through, and again, it's not cherry picking. Like Jason Schreier, literally after he posted his video with him being on the podcast with YongYea, he literally just cut out and pasted one of the comments where people were just immediately being racist in the comic book and in the comment section. And then, of course, when people see that, instead of looking at that and accepting that, what they say is, you just can't cherry pick that, and you just trying to cherry pick. And no, you can go through his videos and you can see exactly the kind of people who comment on his thing. And again, I'm not blaming YongYea for this. He is not responsible for what people put in the comment section. Yet he can't go through and police that kind of thing. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that YongYea has a following of people who are assholes. Everyone does. I have people in my YouTube comments that say all types of crazy shit to me on a regular basis and watch my videos. But again, we can't control who subscribes to us. But what we can do is we can control exactly what type of content that we're putting on our channels. That's what I'm trying to say. And the thing that I caught, and again, I have been following YongYea for a few years now, and I've always liked his content. Now, one thing that Dreamcast guy said, I want to make sure that I touch on this, is that he said that Kotaku has an issue with YouTubers. And to that effect, I won't say that I agree 100%, but I do think there is probably a lot of validity to what he's saying for obvious reasons. I do think that as content creators on YouTube, we're not creating a lot of original content. What we're doing is we're basically taking information and content from these publishers, from the IGNs, the Kotakus, the GameSpots, the Kind of Funny Games. We're taking the information that they worked very hard on to break these kind of news stories, and we're basically just regurgitating that same information to our platforms. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm taking the content that YongYea put out there, and I'm making my own content off of what he put out there. And again, this is fair use, but at the same time, I'm commenting on what was put out there, and it's the same thing that he does. As a matter of fact, if you go through his actual videos, you'll see that one of his biggest videos was based off an article that Jason Schreier wrote when he exposed that guy for copying the I can't remember what video game it was, but it was an IGN article. It was an IGN editor who put out a review for a video game where he was clearly copying his review off of somebody else. And Jason Schreier kind of went out there and kind of pulled up his information and pulled his card, and it was like a big thing. And then what YongYea did was he reported on it, and reported on it, and reported on it for weeks. He put out about at least a half dozen videos on that one thing. And it got him hundreds of thousands of probably millions of views. So I can see how a website like Kotaku, who probably isn't getting that kind of fluff on their videos, can put a lot of hard work into doing these kind of articles, only to have someone like YongYea or Angry Joe or Dreamcast guy basically take their content, comment on it, and get more views and popularity from that than what they actually from the actual source. And again, this has nothing to do with not giving the right credit, because again, YongYea always does a great job of giving credit to the people where the original stuff came from. But I can kind of understand the perspective how a company like Kotaku could be salty that their content is being regurgitated by content creators and they're not getting that same popularity or views from it. I'll be honest with you, I don't go to Kotaku's website. I don't even go to IGN as much as I used to anymore. Because again, just the toxicity of IGN and their comment section is not something that I look forward to going to anymore. And again, I feel like, and again, honestly, I feel like, especially when it comes to covering on Nintendo, I do feel like the IGN is very biased when it comes to Nintendo. And that's just a gripe that I have with Nintendo. So again, I started to stray away from going to IGN for information on video games in general, just because they've turned me off based on how much I feel like they suck up to Nintendo. Like, in their eyes, Nintendo can do no wrong, and I don't like that. So what I do like, though, is if there's a story that's been covered on IGN, or if there's a story that's been covered on Kotaku or any of these websites, and people like YongYea decide to talk about it on his YouTube channel, that is the way, my preferred method of hearing about these things. Because again, I don't necessarily have time to go to IGN and read through the comment section and read through these articles. If I'm on the road and I'm driving, or if I'm doing something and I just want to listen to it or watch it on my phone, it's a lot easier to digest it that way. So that's kind of why I look for people like YongYea. I love his voice. I love how he kind of has like a deadpan, like he gives you no frills, kind of just gives you the story and gives his opinion on it, and he does a really good job at that. That's why I subscribe to YongYea. Now, when I started looking into YongYea and I started watching his videos, that's kind of how he used to do things. Then I started to notice during the Battlefield situation, that controversy that started to happen, that's when I started to notice that's the first, and quite honestly, when he did his video where he was talking about the controversy about a woman being in World War II or whatever Battlefield 5 is set, about women's being in a World War on the front lines. There was this big controversy. That's the first time I ever heard of the term SJW, or social justice warrior. Never heard of that phrase before in my entire life until I watched his video on that. And of course, when you go to his comment, you go to that video, that's one of the biggest videos that he's done. The one where you got all these, and again, you go to the comment section and it's nothing but vitriol and hate and just race baiting. It's sexism. It's horrible, horrible. And again, these are the kind of things that his videos, the kind of people that his videos attract. So it's not, it is, I do think it's fair to say that, and the point that I'm trying to make in this particular segment is that I do think that the big, and again, to coin the phrase from the late Stan Lee, with great power comes great responsibility, or with power, with great power and comes continued responsibility. And when I say that is that, again, me, I have like 570 subscribers on YouTube. In the grand scheme of things, that's not shit. All right. I mostly do these videos because, again, it's therapeutic for me and I like to talk about it. But someone like YongYea, who as of right now has, I don't know, 675,000 subscribers, he's a big deal. So for him, what Jason was kind of saying, and they're kind of back and forth, is that to an extent that that YongYea has a responsibility to not just report on anything that comes across his desk and just try to make the situation worse. I think because of his platform now and him being so popular, he does have a responsibility to come out and speak to the truth and not kind of fan the flames of hatred that's been going on in this industry for a very long time. And that I do agree with 100%, because I do think that someone like me, I can say whatever the fuck I want and no one's going to see my video. And then you have someone like Dreamcast Guy, who is probably, I think when I checked Dreamcast Guy, I think he has like 150,000 subscribers or something like that. So again, grand scheme of things, he's a pretty big deal too. Not as big as YongYea or Angry Joe, who has like millions of subscribers. But I do think the higher in that echelon of YouTube that you do have a greater responsibility where what you say matters. So you can't just go out there and just recite shit without having any sources or just regurgitate information. It's kind of, it's wrong. And again, what you do is when you do stuff like that, you can make the situation worse for everybody and in the industry. So these are just kind of little things that I'm talking about. And the reason why I brought that up specifically is because Dreamcast Guy tried to say something I didn't think was very fair. So what he tried to say is that, you know, Kotaku was this big conglomerate corporation and that they're beating down on a little guy like YongYea and da-da-da-da-da, and how they have access to things that, you know, people like him don't, which is very true, because again, people like Jason Schreier, and again, this is the word that Dreamcast Guy said that rubbed me the wrong way. He said that YongYea was a self-made man and that he got there on his own, insinuating that somehow Jason Schreier was given his position at Kotaku and that he didn't earn it, or somehow he's like the top 1%. Like, he's basically trying to play politics and try to say that YongYea is a self-made YouTuber and he's earned his popularity, where somehow Jason Schreier didn't earn that same thing and that he basically was given his kind of popularity, which is not fair, and which I think is categorically false. So when he says things like that, it makes me angry, and he's trying to say that basically like there's skin in the game for Jason Schreier, whereas Dreamcast Guy is saying things like, well, Jason has bosses that he has to answer to, whereas I am a YouTuber where I don't have a boss and I can do and say whatever I want to. And I'm like, false, fake news. Because at the end of the day, if you are getting review copies of video games from publishers, then you do have a boss. Because at the end of the day, if you say something wrong or say something too harsh about a company that's providing you with review copies of games that you're getting for free so you can review them and review them ahead of time, then you do have a boss. These people, you do play to their needs and to their whims. And at the end of the day, unless you are, to me, the only way that you're going to tell me that you are above any sort of influence is if you buy all your games and you don't have anything to do with these companies whatsoever, because that's, at that point, is when you don't have any relationship that you have to protect, is when you can be 100% unbiased. Because I can say the same thing. I'm a person that has like 500 subscribers, so to me, Dreamcast Guy is that big conglomerate, gigantic person who could crush me like an ant. So I can sit there and I can say in that same breath is that you do have a boss, Dreamcast Guy. You have people that provide you a review copies of video games, and you're not going to say anything bad about them, or you're not going to say anything really bad about their games. You're going to try to play it really nice to the middle. You're not going to really just dig in there and say something like that to them. You're not going to curse them out, or say some racist shit that you would have in the comment section that'll be saying, because at the end of the day, you have business relationships that you have to maintain, so you just can't say what you want. That's the world that we live in. We are in a free world where we can say what we want to say, but we're not, it doesn't prevent us from having to have consequences on what we say. I have the right to go up to my boss and call my boss an asshole, but then my boss can sit there and fire me because I said that. There is no freedom from repercussions from what you say. You can say what you want, but there's always going to be consequences sometimes to what you say. So never forget that. Now, let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes of this actual video. I think I've ranted enough about Dreamcast Guy and some of this other stuff. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play a snippet of what the conversation was in certain segments of the conversation, and then I'm going to kind of give my opinion on each segment. So without further ado, let's just kind of get into that.
Creates that seed of doubt in our minds and makes us wonder, oh my God, was this difficulty?
So I'm going to pause it right there real quick. So what's the conversation that they're having right now? This is them talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the thing that I was talking about, where YongYea felt like microtransactions in Assassin's Creed Odyssey was not necessary, and that he felt like it hindered the game, and where Jason kind of just said like it wasn't a big deal for him. And again, my opinion in this scenario is that I don't think it was a big deal. I played about 90 hours of Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I absolutely love that game. It is definitely one of my contenders for Game of the Year. And not one moment did I feel the need to buy XP boosters to play that game at all. And for those people who want to try to say that I like to play my RPGs and I don't want to ever have to play in these side missions, I want to do the side missions at the end, and I should be able to play through the main game without having to do any side missions, and that should be my choice. Fuck all that. It is not, just because you buy a game for $60 doesn't entitle you to tell the developer how they should make their game to please just you. They make the game and they put that product out for you, and whether you like it or not is based on how you play. You are playing their game based on how they want you to play that game. So if they make their game so that you are, I don't want to say forced, but you are directed to do some of this other side content that they want you to see in the game, that's up to them to do that, and that's their right to do that as a playing the video game. If you don't like RPGs, guess what? Side quests and RPGs is a thing. If you don't like side quests, don't play a fucking RPG, because guess what? There isn't an RPG alive that doesn't have side quests. So get the fuck over it. And I do find it funny that people want to talk about Assassin's Creed, their side quests, but in a game like Red Dead Redemption 2, where there's no fucking fast traveling, you literally, the game is forcing you to walk, to ride on horseback miles and miles and hours to get back to certain points with no fast travel. I think that's fucking ridiculous. But then no one says anything about that. But if you want to talk about being forced to do side missions in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, somehow that's an issue. But I digress. Let's kind of focus on this. So I'm going to play this and just let you guys hear it, and then I'm going to comment.
Scaling built so they could sell us this $10 package. And that, I think, is it's a more insidious problem than the fact that the game has microtransactions. The fact that it plants a seed of doubt in your mind, and the fact that it's such a different form of commodity than just exchanging money for something. It's not quite the same as buying an outfit, which also, I mean, not enough people are talking about how egregious it is that you have to spend like $7.50 for a unicorn skin. That's a whole other thing. But
is that earnable in game? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't think so. But the fact that you can pay for this thing that just affects the game in this intangible way, I think that is what really bothers people. And I get that. But I think it's also really important to know and to be honest about your perspective on things. And when I played the game, I felt like, oh my God, like this feels like one of those controversies that is just being turned into headlines because it is there. And that I think is interesting. And part of me felt like at the time, I mean, first of all, a lot of this, one of the problems here is that people just take tweets and assume that this is like they look at my Twitter feed and look at one of my tweets and say, oh my God, this is like, this guy's chiseling his opinion in stone, as opposed to me just like writing a stray thought and putting it out there. And we'll get to that in a little bit, because we're going to talk a little bit more about that in relation to Diablo Immortal. But with this, it felt to me like it was something that this massive, incredible game that I was playing, my thought was, oh my God, like I don't even notice this XP booster. But I can totally understand why people feel like its very presence is irritating them. And I think we're at this point where video game publishers are trying to find more and more ways to get that extra revenue stream out of their games. And I think that going down that route is always going to be room for problems. It's always going to raise questions about like the way that the game was designed. But that to me doesn't seem nearly as egregious as some of the other things we've seen. Battlefront 2 is a perfect example. And I think one of the problems with the way that we have these discussions is that it puts everything on the same level. It's almost like there's no level of prioritization. There's no level of like, oh my God, this is really egregious versus this is okay, whatever. It's not that big a deal. And I think that we as a quote unquote video game community, for lack of a better term, need to like, when we get this angry about everything, I think it creates this poisonous world where we are hurting a lot of people. And I think that gamer rage is a real problem, and I think a lot of that is caused as a result of not being able to prioritize and not being able to see the difference between something like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, where it's like, okay, this XP booster plants this idea in my mind, it's kind of annoying, I hate that it even exists, which I totally agree with that, versus Battlefront 2, where you have to pay more if you want to get good at the multiplayer, at least before the...
So I want to pause it right there, because what Jason just said speaks to what I have been saying online for weeks now. I have been saying that it's not that I don't agree that Assassin's Creed Odyssey's XP booster needs to exist. Does anything need to exist? No. What I am saying is that for me, as an individual with a brain and a decision to make, I can decide that from me playing that game, do I feel like that the game has been hindered so that people will be forced to buy this XP booster? And I say no. At no point in the game did I feel like, Jesus Christ, this game is just a log and I gotta do all these stupid go fetch missions. Assassin's Creed Odyssey had such a plethora of different story missions and different side missions of all varying types. Did they have a bunch of annoying missions where you had to go pick up herbs in the garden and bring it back and shit like that? Yeah, they had a couple of missions like that. But then they also had a lot of other ways for you to earn XP, where you had to go to this place and you had to kill this main guy, and you had to go here and do this other thing. And again, all that stuff was very, very interesting. You had to go fight these mythical beasts that you had to go do. It was so many things. Ship battles. This game is incredible. And again, I felt like there was enough content there for me that I never had to worry about an XP booster. Now, back to what Jason was saying. I was always saying that the problem that we have in this community right now is that everybody is screaming about everything. Doesn't matter how big, how small. It's like, we got a victory with Star Wars Battlefront 2. And what people extrapolated from that situation is that if we yell and scream and rage enough, we'll always get what we want. And that's not true. Because if that were the case, then we wouldn't have microtransaction in games like FIFA right now. But because FIFA is a juggernaut for EA. It doesn't matter what the fuck we say. They're never going to take microtransactions out of FIFA because it makes them too much money. But I think as what gamers have done is they've taken the victory from Star Wars Battlefront 2 because it was such an uproar. It was so much anger. It was so much vitriol. There was so much cursing and just bullshit. And again, EA deserved all of that. Let me be clear when I say fuck EA. Alright? Like, I am not a proponent. I don't subscribe to EA as far as when it comes to Star Wars games and just as their business practices in general, because I do think that they don't give a fuck about gamers. All they care about is their money. But at the end of the day, that's what all these developer companies, they care about is the money. The CEOs at least. Now, what I was saying when I was going in the comment section and I was literally fighting with these people about this whole Assassin's Creed thing was that stop treating Assassin's Creed like it's Star Wars Battlefront 2 because it's not. These two issues are not equal. And all I kept hearing, because it was the same thing with Angry Joe, who tried to come out and do the same thing with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, even though he really enjoyed the game, he really tried to rail on it about the whole XP booster. And everything that I kept hearing when I was talking about it in the comment section is that we have to do it this way because even if they're not doing it now, they're going to do it in the next game. So what do we have to do it now because in the next game, they're going to do it even worse. And my response to them was that I'm not, as a consumer, going to hold a company accountable for something they have not done yet. All I can do is look at what you're doing now. So when I looked at Star Wars Battlefront 2, I looked at what they were doing in its totality of right there in that moment, and I did not subscribe to that at all. Like, I had Star Wars Battlefront 2 in my list of things to purchase when it came out. I played the online beta. I wasn't 100% sold on the multiplayer battle modes, but I was definitely sold on the Star Wars, the ship battle stuff. So all that, when I played that, I was like, okay, this game is fantastic. I really want to get into the Millennium Falcon, just the different ships. Like, I love that part of the game, even though I wasn't very good at the whole mercenaries and Jedi stuff. I never got enough kills to earn to get the Luke Skywalker and running through a Darth Vader and just wiping people out. I was never good enough to get those kill streaks, but in the Starship, the Starfighter game, I enjoyed that a lot more. But then this controversy came out with the microtransactions, and I do remember how hard it was, or just even how it wasn't as enjoyable when I was going through it. And after that controversy, I made the decision that I'm not buying Star Wars Battlefront 2 because of that controversy. I did not like what EA was doing, and I immediately canceled the game, and I did not get it. And to this day, I have not get it, and I have not gotten that game because I am voting with my dollar. I'm showing EA that you do not get to try to make changes later on and expect to get my money then. You need to have your best game put out the first time around, and then you will get my money. But if you fuck up, don't expect me to come back to you later on when you fix that game, depending on how egregious it is. If it's something that's small, you might be able to get me back. But if something as big as Star Wars Battlefront 2, there was no way they were going to ever get my money for that. At that point, it was just principle that I could not support that game. Now, to then take what happened with Star Wars Battlefront 2 and try to apply that to what's going on in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I don't subscribe to that. Because again, to me, they are not in the same league whatsoever. So for people like YongYea, for people like Dreamcast Guy, for people like Angry Joe to come out here and try to say and try to make it seem like these two are equivalent is not fair. Because again, what you do is that it's almost like crying wolf all the time. Like, you cannot treat these situations equally. And that's why people were upset with him, because they're like, oh yeah, he's a corporate shill and he's doing this and he must get a check from EA and da-da-da-da-da. So like, it's always like, if you don't subscribe to my anger, then you must be working for the corporate end of things. Like, because I don't agree that Assassin's Creed Odyssey is as egregious as Star Wars Battlefront 2, then I somehow must be working for EA, and I must, because there can't be any way that I could also the both things can be equal. Like, I can hate what they did in Star Wars Battlefront 2, but somehow I can't be okay with what's going on in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, because at the end of the day, I don't have to spend the $10 for the XP booster. I didn't do it. Again, 90 hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I think I am level 48, 49, so I'm already almost at the level cap, and I have just been enjoying the game, and I have not once needed to use the XP booster. Period. It's as simple as that. So for Jason to say that and for YongYea to kind of come back, and again, I'll let you see what his rebuttal is so you can get the full context.
They removed all the microtransactions. Point being, I think that it's really important to see the levels in this and to not just treat everything as if it is quote unquote cancerous, as if it is exploitative. And that's the things that I was saying on Twitter. Are that I think when you are screaming, when people are screaming, not necessarily, I'm not going to name names here, but I think when there's this world when we're just shrieking constantly about everything, I think it just creates this poisonous discourse. It leads to just lots of toxicity. It leads to game developers burning out. It leads to hardcore game players just not wanting to be involved anymore. It leads to less people taking it less seriously when there are real problems. It just causes a lot
crying wolf.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
The notion that the thing is, people understand that Battlefront 2 is far worse than Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
They don't act like it.
That I don't think that necessarily excuses what Assassin's Creed Odyssey is doing with the XP boosters, and I guess part of it is that different people have different criteria for what they deem acceptable. Like for example, I think if something is cosmetics, no random chance that you can just purchase directly, if it's reasonably priced, then reasonably allowed to obtain via gameplay, and it also helps if it's free to play versus single player, but mainly that first three criteria, I think then people kind of overlook it. Like Fortnite, not a lot of people are talking about how egregious Fortnite is. There's some segments who say, I think some of the skins are overpriced. But there is this system where you get the battle pass. You can sort of, if you play a lot of the game, you can earn all of it and earn enough currency to buy the next battle pass. And so it encourages gameplay where you play and you earn the rewards. Whereas with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it affects gameplay, but there's no way to earn that via gameplay. It's just something that's paywalled for an additional $10 for a feature that some might desire. Even if you don't, per se, that doesn't mean that there aren't people who do desire that, who think that.
I'm gonna pause it there because basically what he's trying to say is I feel like yes, that's the whole point of it. There's a certain segment of people who want to be lazy, who want to earn. If you want to earn extra XP, you don't want to put in the 60, 70 hours it takes to beat Assassin's Creed Odyssey. You want to beat it faster. You want to, it's not free. I shouldn't give you that for free. If I'm a game developer and I have an impatient gamer who wants to beat the game faster, fuck you, pay me. Pay me $10. You want to beat you still want to play the game and you want to beat the game in half the time, give me $10 and you can play the game and get double XP boosters. That's basically what I would tell you. That's what I would do. Any sane business person, I'm going to monetize after that. Why would I have my developers, the people that I work for, put hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours in story and voice work and all this stuff into a game that you pay $60 for, and then after all of that give you free XP boosters to beat the game faster than what it was intended to be beaten without any sort of monetary gain? Does that make sense to anybody? No. That's like somebody sitting there selling a car and selling it to you half price because you say you don't want to pay full price for the game, you want to pay half price, and so instead I'm just going to give it to you for half off. Just because. Because I want to do what's best for you. No, I'm not doing what's best for you. I want to do what's best for me. I put all this hard work for you to enjoy this game. I want you to play the game as I intended you to play it, and I want you to play through it the entire time. But if I can tell that there's a revenue stream there for impatient people who want to beat the game faster, so whether it's they want to be able to talk about the game and put out guides and just, talk about how they beat the game before everybody else, fine, pay me $10 for it. I don't have a problem with that because at the end of the day, it's not impeding on my gameplay. There's nothing in Assassin's Creed Odyssey that anybody else can do in that game that would hurt my personal experience with the game. It's not like a first-person shooter where if you pay money, you can earn Darth Vader, who can wipe the floor with everybody else. If you pay $15, you can unlock Vader right away. Whereas if it were someone like me, who I would have to earn Darth Vader by playing the game, it would take me hundreds of hours to do that. That's an unfair balance that you're putting in a game that somebody else can pay to win. There is no pay to win in a single-player game because it's a single-player game. There's nothing to pay to win. So for them, they're like, how do we monetize single-player games? XP booster. I have no problem with that because, again, at the end of the day, that's a choice. As long as you're not hindering my gameplay to force me to buy this thing. So if it was a trog, and if it was like a situation where it's clearly meant to slow down things to make people buy that XP booster, I would be complaining. But it didn't feel that way, because again, it felt like they had it set up so that you could do the story missions, the side missions, the boat missions, and everything kind of ties together, and it never felt like I was being forced to buy that XP booster.
The game would be better off with that XP booster activated, and I don't think them expressing anger over that necessarily is unjustified, or is sort of... They're not saying it's as bad as Battlefront 2, but they're also not going to say, hey, this is acceptable either. So to just say it's an annoyance is downplaying that.
When you say express anger, I mean, I think that's one of the real fundamental problems with the game industry right now, is anger and this rage that is just cultivated and instilled and is just so constantly ubiquitous in the video game industry. This rage, this anger, like, oh my god, this $60 game that happens to be one of the best Assassin's Creeds by far, like this incredible open world RPG that is like so well designed and full of interesting stuff and humongous. You can spend 200 hours playing this. It is. Would you agree with me when I say that the video game industry right now and the quality of video games is as high as it's ever been?
For certain games, yes. For others,
in general, I'm just saying in general. I'm not saying I know there's some series that are in the shitter. I'm not arguing that point. But I'm saying in general. Right now, if you go into Steam, the number of games you can play. I mean, everyone's always talking about their backlogs, their Steam backlogs, and right now, I mean, I just finished Red Dead Redemption 2, which is absurd.
Yeah, of course.
And now I'm moving on to Return of the Obra Dinn and Hitman 2 and all these other games that I want to play. We're at this point where video games are an incredible place.
Yeah, the fidelity is amazing.
Their graphical fidelity, they're hitting all these artistic bars, yet at the same time, there's so much rage. Yeah. And to me, it's like...
And I wanted to pause it there, too, because that is another great point that he brings up that is very true. Like, people seem to forget, video games used to cost a lot more than they do now. Right now, for the past 10 plus 15 years, video games have been capped at between $49.99 and I think it went up to like $59.99. Games are now $60. Back when I used to play like Super Nintendo, like to this day, I'll never forget when I bought Super Street Fighter 2 for the Super NES. My dad paid $79.99 for that game. That game was $80. $80 for Super Street Fighter 2 on the Super NES. So games have actually gone down in pricing, but the quality and the demand and the just think about how big Red Dead Redemption 2 is. The install size for Red Dead Redemption 2 on the Xbox One X is 150 gigs. God damn. 150 gigs for one game. $60. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of man hours put into this game for $60. And people want to complain about the smallest shit if people are trying to recoup money in other ways. That's what I'm saying. Like, we can't, as gamers, we can't have it both ways. Like, I'll be the first to admit that we as people, even myself included, we get used to a certain thing, and things, once you get hooked on a certain thing, you can't really change it. You can't really go out of people's comfort zones, because once you do that, we've already been accustomed to this thing, you can't change it. Like, I'll give you a prime example, and again, in this example, I do think I'm justified. Right now, for the longest time, I've paid for Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, $99, you get unlimited 2-day shipping. If I order a product on Wednesday, it'll be there by Friday. If I order a product on Friday, it'll be to my door by Sunday. For the longest time, that's how I work with Amazon Prime. I didn't buy Amazon Prime for their fucking Amazon Prime video services and all the other extra shit you get with it. I could give two fucks about that. I paid $100 a year for Amazon Prime to get free 2-day shipping. That's what I paid for. Now, we are in this world where Amazon is kind of like blown their stuff out of proportion, and they can't meet the demand. So what do? They raised the right to $120 a year for Amazon Prime. At first, I'm like, you know what? As long as I can still get my stuff in 2 days, I'll pay you $120. Now all of a sudden, Amazon Prime is trying to say that, oh, we never promise people stuff in 2 days. We're saying that it ships in 2 days, which means it can sit in our warehouse for a week, and then we can ship it out to you and it'll get to you in 2 days. That's not what you. That's not what. Even if you. Even then, what they're saying is that's always been their language because there's always a processing time in the warehouse. No, what they're doing now is that when I'm ordering stuff for Christmas and I'm doing all this other stuff, it's like November 27th or 28th is when it's shipped, and I'm like, well, that's not Prime. That to me is just regular shipping. Like I can go to Target or Walmart where they're doing 2-day shipping and they can do it for me then. But now all of a sudden Amazon can't honor that 2-day shipping thing. That to me is like, for the longest time you have provided us with 2-day shipping. That has been the expectation. Is from the moment I order that device or that item, it will be to my front door in 2 days. Not from the moment it leaves the warehouse to your houses in 2 days. That is a drastic change. And again, you can't now just try to switch that and on top of that charge me $20 more a year. That, I don't subscribe to that. So what I'm saying in the regards to video games is that people are accustomed to $60. That's what people have been paying for the longest time. So that's where reason why the prices stayed stagnant, no matter how big these games have been getting over the years. Because again, something has to give. So we can't. These companies can't keep bringing out these massive games for $60, and then they're not going to recoup their money on $60 alone. Like, we are spoiled. Like, either game prices have to go up or they're going to be microtransactions. That's just how it is. Because at the end of the day, these companies are not here to make games for us. They are here to make money. So when entitled gamers do shit like, and you know, we'll get into that. Because again, I'm trying to stay on course because there is a developer component to this as well.
In a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, it's $60. For $60, you are getting so much more and so much a better game than so many of the things. Like, if you look back, I don't know how long you have been following the video game industry, but if you look back even 8 years ago, 10 years ago, at the types of games that were being released for the same exact price, it is like beyond belief how much better this is in every way, quantity and quality, right?
Yeah,
and
look at PS3 games compared to PS4 games.
It's hard for me to accept that there should be rage about these things. Like, okay, you want to get annoyed that this game is an XP booster, fine. You want to get annoyed that this game has this annoying microtransaction and it's just like should not be there. It ruins the integrity of the game. I am with you there 100%. But I think when you turn that into like, I am now going to spend 4 hours a day in the comments on YouTube and Reddit or social media screaming at developers and just getting upset about every new controversy week after week, I think that is where you hit a point where, I mean, for me, it's incomprehensible.
But here's the thing. How do you change a circumstance like Battlefront 2 without an outrage? I mean, do you think that EA would have backpedaled on things like Battlefield 5, which has no loot boxes, or Anthem, which they say will have no loot boxes? FIFA still does, but, you know. Would you say that backpedaling would have happened without some sort of outcry?
See, I think that is, I think there are times when it is justified to go out and be like, you know what, I'm going to start this consumer movement together. I think the Xbox DRM was a very good example.
So, again, he's talking about two different things. So, what Yong is basically saying, which is true, that without the yelling and the screaming and the vitriol, we wouldn't have gotten things like the DRM and the Xbox One. Because again, the reason why I didn't own Xbox One when it first came out, and the reason probably why Xbox One is in last place right now as console sales, is because of the DRM, is because of the no-use games thing that they did, and people didn't go out and support the system because people yelled and screamed enough that got things changed. I agree with that. What I don't subscribe to is that you can treat every big issue like that the same and think that you can yell and scream and curse and be racist and do all this other stuff and get the same result for everything. It doesn't work for everything.
Of a way that a group of people who are really upset and want to stop something can get together and do that. But even then, it was like with Battlefront 2, the level of discourse that I saw, it's just like, it goes beyond like, here, I am a passionate person and I am really against this. And it just goes into, I mean, I've looked at your YouTube comments. Like, it's the level of discourse that you have is different than the anger and rage and outrage and just toxicity that I'm seeing expressed by people. And I think that is a real problem. And I think people like you and me with a platform, I think one of our responsibilities, because we speak to these big audiences, is to say, hey, like, maybe you don't need to be so angry. Maybe that anger is not really healthy for anybody. And for me personally, and we will probably get into this, but something that I find really concerning, I am someone who really deeply cares about video games.
Now, and again, like I said, I'm not going to do a play-by-play of everything that was said. I'm not going to go through the entire article or whatever. Again, I just kind of wanted to touch on certain aspects, because there's also a thing that Jason brings up as well that makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to touch on that because I do think it is something that's true, and it needs to be discussed. I think because again, you can go into the comment sections right now and people are trying to rip Jason apart, and I feel like YongYea brought up some good points. There was one point where, and again, I want just to be fair, where they start talking about Diablo Immortal and how Jason called the guy who asked a stupid question about is this some sort of April Fool's joke. He made this kind of dickhead comment to one of the head publishers of Diablo Immortal, or whatever the case may be, and Jason Schreier kind of went on Twitter and said that guy who asked that question was being petulant. So, and YongYea in this thing spent a lot of time trying to catch Jason in this thing, like try to tie him to what he said, and I respected the fact that Jason didn't take it back. He did think that the guy was being petulant. Again, it was his opinion on how that guy was acting. Now, one thing that YongYea had said is he kind of said that it felt like when Jason Schreier is talking about fans of video games, he's more honest and open about calling them assholes or saying things about gamers, whereas where he's talking about developers, or where he's talking about, the game people that when they make mistakes, it's not so much of him being hardcore and honest as he is when he's talking about gamers, where it's more controlled and where it's more prepared. It's probably what he was trying to say. And to that point, I do agree that that's probably something that Jason does. But my counter to that would be is, again, these are the people that Jason has a development relationship with. He's not going to just curse these people out. These are people that help him get the news out that you use YongYea to make your channel work. So if Jason Schreier went around cursing out and just talking shit to all the different people he has connections with, he wouldn't have those connections. Again, it goes back to that thing where you are free to say what you want, but you're not free from consequences. So I get how you have to sometimes temper what you say to certain people. And I think even Jason in the video says is like, one way to kind of say what you want to someone is that when you're talking about someone, talk to them like you're in front of them. Like, don't say anything to that person that you wouldn't say directly to their face. Like, you're not going to walk up to that random person on the street. Like, it's real easy for me to go on the computer and be like, fuck you, you this and this, and you nigger. Like, it's real easy for telephone tough guys or keyboard criminals to kind of just go in behind an anonymous computer and say whatever they want to somebody, because again, they're free from consequences. They don't have to really see that person. But I always like to say is, if I were standing in front of your face, would you say that same thing to me? Probably not, because depending on the situation, you might get a fist to the mouth. So you have to be careful on how you convey your thoughts, especially when you're online versus when you're in someone's face. So I kind of understand where he's coming from in that situation.
I really love video games, want them to be better. And I am also someone who talks to. I get that this guy, and the Blizzard fans, this is all they had to talk to. They can't be sending emails to Bobby Kotick, but why can't they be talking about the people at Activision who are taking home? Bobby Kotick's bonus last year was, I believe, $28 million. Wyatt Chang is not making that kind of money.
Now, the reason why I skipped forward a little bit, because I wanted to kind of talk about this, because I want to kind of talk about real quick the relationships between who YongYea services versus who Jason Schreier is servicing versus who people like me are servicing. I feel like the reason why there is such a disconnect between YongYea and Jason is because they're in it for different reasons. Like, I feel like YongYea has a public, like kind of like grassroots fan base. Like his fan base is built off of people that he's earned through his videos through YouTube. So his content is playing to their needs, what they want to see, what they want to do. That's what gets revenue for him. Whereas someone like Jason, who is in a more established situation, he has more information that YongYea doesn't have access to. He has connections. He has these kind of things. So he's speaking from a place of higher authority, of higher knowledge than someone like YongYea. So his clientele is going to definitely be higher. It kind of seems like he's being condescending, but again, at the same time, he is just speaking the truth. When you've been in the industry as long as he has, he's earned everything he has, so he has the ability and the right to be able to do these things, and I get that. It might come off as a little condescending, but it is what it is. So it seemed to me as I'm listening to this entire thing that Jason is basically speaking on the behalf of the developers. And as he's talking about it, and again, I never really thought about that perspective, because for me as a consumer, all I care about is I gave you that $60, I want the game. I'm not thinking, and your average consumer is not thinking about what it went through, what these developers went through to make this game that you're enjoying. What these people who made God of War went through to get that game to you that you love. All you cared about is that I paid $60 for this game, did it meet my expectations? And I think what Jason was trying to say is that you have these CEOs that are at the front of EA who they're the ones that are making these decisions. It all comes down here at the top of the pyramid. Shit, it's just like you say, shit rolls downhill. You have someone like Donald Trump, and I hate to bring politics into this, but that's probably the best way that I can do it. Donald Trump comes up with this dumbass idea, and Donald Trump is not going to be the one that's going to disseminate that information to the masses. What he does is he gets one of his peons that are underneath him to deliver the bad news. Everyone else yells at that person, but again, to be fair, Donald Trump gets the brunt of that as well, being the president of the United States. But essentially what's going on is that Jason is trying to speak for these developers. That's why he keeps mentioning things like he wants developers to start unionizing, because that's the only way that some of these things are going to get, things are going to get better with the crunch and all this other stuff. He mentions the fact that some of these CEOs are making $28 million bonuses, which is absolutely ludicrous. How is it that you're a CEO and you're making $28 million, but then you have like some of these head developers that are making shit money and they're putting in like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours into making these video games, and they're getting burned out? And then can you imagine, like, let's be clear, I don't think anyone gets into game development for the money. Because again, quite honestly, there are a lot of jobs out there that'll pay you more for not as much stress. I think the majority of people who get into game development do it because they have a passion for video games. That's just my thought on it. I think the money comes with that, but I don't think that the primary reason why people do that kind of things is for the money. So for me, if I'm a game developer, and again, Jason says this, again, I'm not going to play everything in detail. You can go look at the thing as well, and I'll link it to the video, but I think what Jason is trying to say is that it's very hard for a developer to put all his blood, sweat, and tears into these video games for people to enjoy, get yelled at in Reddit and all these other things for every little thing that goes wrong, get called a cuck and asshole, and then by the fans who don't even appreciate all the hard work that they're putting into these games. And then we have a CEO who's basically delegating all these shitty ass ideas because the developers don't want to do that. You think that the developers wanted to put those microtransactions in Shadow of War? No, it's the shareholders and it's the people who want to make money who are telling them to do this. So it's not fair to necessarily yell at the middleman. You need to go to the top. Yell at the people who are making $28 million bonuses and see if they can start having things where these CEOs are being capped off to make this extra money, whereas these developers are the ones that are getting this shit. Because again, I feel like as gamers that we're ungrateful. Like if I was a developer, if like I was the head of some of these things, I'd be like, fuck you guys. If you guys don't appreciate the shit that we do for you, then I'm not going to make this game anymore. That's why you have people like Cliffy B who's not making video games anymore. Because it's not appreciated and people are assholes. Like I was just on Twitter earlier today, and I was listening to Layman Gaming. They put a video up about this where they're talking about how somebody tweeted at Cliffy B and said something to the effect of, "I'm still waiting for my refund of Lawbreakers, asshole," or something to that effect. And again, if you don't know, Lawbreakers was the first-person arena shooter that Cliff Bleszinski, the guy who basically made Gears of War, he created this game, and it bombed. It failed. And again, this was a game that I was very excited about, but once I actually played it in the beta, I didn't enjoy the movement of the characters, so it wasn't a game that was for me. But that's neither here nor there. So the game fails, it gets canceled, and then Cliffy B makes another video game that was more like a Battle Royale type of game, and that game ended up failing as well. So then his company that he created kind of went belly under. And then you have this random asshole who decides to tweet at him and say something, again trolling, saying, "Hey, I'm still waiting for my refund for Lawbreakers." And Cliffy B responded something to the effect of, "I made sure that the people, when my company shuttered, I made sure that they got their 401ks. I made sure that they had their health benefits, and I didn't take a salary on for 2 years. You're the reason why I will never make a video game ever again. It's people like you are the reason for why I don't want to make video games anymore." Something to that effect. You can still go out there and see the tweet. It's out there. But again, it just encapsulates this entitlement that we have as gamers, where we feel like we can say whatever we want to anybody because we paid you $60 for a game, so then that entitles me to be an asshole. That entitles me to get my blood from you because I bought your video game. You owe me something because I paid your video game. And again, it has nothing to do with the fact that you decided to buy a game that was a game as a service, where this game is not meant to be paid to be played if it fails. Like me, I'm the kind of person where like I don't necessarily like buying games that I don't have any possibility of playing later on down the line. That's why I buy mostly single player games like Spider-Man, games like God of War, so that 10-15 years from now, if I want my girls to play this game, I can just pop it in, and whether it's online or offline, I can still play that game. I learned my lesson a long time ago from a game that was on PS4 called MAG, which was stood for Massive Online, Massive Action Game or something like that. It was like a 100-person multiplayer game. Online only, there was no offline mode, there was no story mode, it was just a massive online action game called MAG. And that game failed. And guess what? If you wanted to play MAG right now, you couldn't play it because the servers are dead. And once the servers are dead, there's nothing else you can do with that game. So to me, I learned my lesson then. Don't buy games that if it fails, you have no way of playing this game anymore. So again, like I subscribe to stuff where I can pull out my PlayStation 1 and put in all my old games and play them. I can pull in my SNES and play my old SNES games. I can do that. So for him to go out there and feel like he's entitled to say something like that to Cliffy B, not understanding what this guy did for his people, I think is an asshole move. And that's kind of what I'm saying about that. Now, let's continue a little bit. I'm gonna try to wrap this up soon.
Misguided. It feels like, and by the way, that April Fool's joke, a lot of people have been like blasting me because I tweeted that April Fool's joke was
petulant and whatever.
Yeah, petulant. Mm-hmm. People act like, again, it's the Twitter problem. Mm-hmm. People look at that tweet and they're like, "Oh my God, look at Jason's thoughts etched in stone. He's defending Blizzard," without actually like reading or listening to anything I'm actually saying about Diablo Immortal. So that's too bad. But because like I don't think this was a big deal. It was a stupid joke. I thought it was dumb and immature, but I don't really care that much about this guy asking a question on stage.
This is the whole.
You basically told him like if you think this is okay, you can like fuck off. And
yeah, I mean that's a problem with Twitter, is that sometimes you'll be like angry about something and then 20 minutes later.
And this is kind of what I was talking about with YongYea. Kind of called him out on how you can be really angry with fans, but you don't have that same energy with people in the industry, and that's kind of what I'm saying. Keep the same energy.
The point that I was trying to make is that like when people get this mad about Blizzard and Wyatt Chang and even just the idea of Blizzard, why aren't people sending mass letters to Bobby Kotick? Why aren't people
give us his email? Give us his email address.
Why don't you send? Why don't? Where's the letter mailing campaign to Activision HQ saying that fans don't want the CEO of Activision making a $28 million bonus based on the profit that he's generating from these ridiculous microtransactions?
For sure.
I think that oftentimes, like, That's what makes me angry. I want to talk
Sure.
about anger.
Sure.
It doesn't make me angry that Blizzard's making Diablo Immortal. It makes me angry that Bobby Kotick is making $8 million bonuses while his employees.
And you can kind of hear that when Yong is listening to Jason talk about the CEOs, he's kind of very dismissive. It's just kind of like blowing them off, like, yeah, we don't care about the $28 million. Let's talk about what you said about that, the people that watch my channel. Like, we don't care about the fact that this guy's making $28 million. Yeah, gotcha. But let's harp on the fact that you called this guy an asshole or told him to fuck off, or let's talk about this guy that you said that he was petulant. That's what I want to talk about, because again, that's sensationalizing it. That's what people want to hear about. You called one of my YouTube video persons an asshole, and I want to stick it to you because of that. Like, that's the kind of shit that I don't like.
That I mean, really, what a lot of people might not even realize is that they're angry in any way. I do think that it's important to look at these things and to wonder, like, hey, how did these decisions get made? Why are these decisions getting made? How can I advance the conversation in a productive way? And I don't think the answer to that is the sheer rage and posting in your YouTube comments about cucks and SJWs and all the other things that I have seen.
I don't disagree with you there.
And again, you can see he's kind of like dancing around it. Like, you can see, like, whenever Jason is talking about the comment section of YouTube, Yong doesn't want to deal with that. He doesn't talk about, he doesn't necessarily disagree with what he's saying, but he doesn't talk about that a lot. He doesn't go after the fact that his comment section is very toxic. And again, you can go into the comment section of this video and you can see how toxic it is, where people are talking about that kind of stuff, because again, that is a lot of his fan base, where people are going to that video because they want to see him stick it to EA and they want to stick it to women and all of this shit, because people want to see that. So again, like, I don't want to. I wanted to kind of keep this around an hour, so we're hitting about an hour 5 minutes. So just in conclusion, I definitely think that there is a lot of room to grow in this gaming community. Like, there are a lot of different things that I want to see this community grow, and I want to see a lot of things change in this community. Like, I am not a huge proponent of microtransactions. I don't mind them if done correctly. I do think there are examples of games that don't really try to do too much in microtransactions, and I always like to look back to Titanfall 2. I thought Titanfall 2 was a game that handled microtransactions great. You paid for cosmetics, and then the way that I feel about microtransactions is that if I'm paying money for something, I'm not paying for a chance. I want to pay money and get what I want. So, like, if I want this premium skin where my character does these extra poses or does these extra moves, nothing that necessarily changes the balance of the game. Like, for instance, in Titanfall 2, they had different sort of executions. So, like, you had your standard execution where you walk up from behind somebody and you hit the thumb button, you break their neck. Or if you had a Titan, and if you got that person's Titan into the red zone, you hit the button for melee, and when you melee him, you do like this special execution where if you have a robot, he sticks his gun inside of you and pulls a trigger and boom, and like blows you up. It's very fancy, it's very cool. What they did was they added in these extra skins where it made your Titan look different, and then that Titan that looked different also had a different execution move. It just looked different. It added on a second execution, and it was that. And again, it didn't change gameplay. It was another way for that to look cool. And again, I think it was like $2.99 or $3.99 or whatever. You buy this Prime skin, and you get the skin, you get the extra execution, you get these little color palettes and stuff like that, and you pay the money, you get what you want. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I like. I don't want something where I have to pay $1.99 to get a spin on the wheel to get a possibility to get something new. And a lot of times you're getting like doubles, and you're getting like shit. That's the kind of shit where it's more like a slot machine where it's chance. I don't like that kind of stuff. So, like, I'm the kind of person where, like, I will pay for microtransactions, but it has to be an immediate result. So, like, if I buy this, I get this. I get what I wanted to get. Unless it's a free-to-play. If it's a free-to-play game like Yu-Gi-Oh!, where Yu-Gi-Oh! Is based on the chance and getting packs and stuff like that, then, of course, you go into it thinking that, yeah, I might get an ultra rare in this pack, or I might not, but that's kind of the chance you take when you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it's a free-to-play game. So again, I felt like I've kind of put myself out there. I've kind of gotten this off my chest. I kind of want to get the conversation started. I want you guys to definitely check out the Mag Nerd podcast. I'm going to be also uploading the audio to my podcast page, as well as you should be seeing this video up on YouTube shortly as well. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thumbs up the video. This is Showing Off the King, and you guys have a awesome day.